So speaking of plants, I think it's maybe a good time we go on a little garden tour. You want to go head out?
I would love to go on the garden tour.
Sweet.
Well, I think this is the first filmed garden tour that we've done. I do my own podcast out here in the garden, but this is pretty exciting to be here with you, Mason. I feel like I need to give we are at the very beginning of the gardening season. Yeah. So we had snow on the ground weeks ago, like not like many weeks ago, but like a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
So, and it was just a very long, cold spring, and now everything is bursting forth. But the garden is very much in its like infancy stage, and just all the plants are little. But luckily, Mason and Amanda have agreed to make the short trip back from Wisconsin to here in the summertime when you can properly see the garden. So I'm very excited for that, and we have it on record. Don't
100% happening.
Don't edit that out.
Not.
What you said?
Oh, my bad.
We're gonna listen to Tori.
That's right.
Yeah. But I'm really excited to be here in this particular spot because I just noticed this spot yesterday, and like these, I mean, they just come out of nowhere, right? Like the violets popped up, and then with the daffodils, and you can see how fresh it is. Like this is leaves right here that they're poking through. Look at that, cool. Poking that little flower bud.
Popping right through.
Yeah, so very exciting to be in this like very beautiful little, at the base of a cherry tree with flying ants. Yeah, so I love violets so much, and I actually planted all of this violet from sprouts from Strictly Medicinals and from a friend who had some violet odorata, and I've just been plugging it everywhere, and it's starting to become kind of weedy and go everywhere, which is what I want. Yeah. I want it to be everywhere because I love violet so much. I actually only fell in love with violet like not too long ago. Like, I don't know, it was maybe 5 years ago, but I hadn't spent much time with violet odorata. Have you?
Not really. It always makes me happy when I see it pop up in the spring.
I mean, the smell.
Yeah.
You should grab one and smell, because that smell is just like...
The flower's the thing that has the odor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's such an incredible smell. And the thing, you can't capture that smell.
No.
Like, that's not something that has ever been able to be captured, which is so special. Wow. It's so special that we can capture lavender smell, right? And I cherish that. Yeah. And it's also so special we can't... This is it. Right. This ephemeral spring being. We get to smell this smell and then, enjoy it for such a short time. Right. And it really is a beautiful reminder of just to be present and to enjoy the spring. And right about now, things are like ramping up really quick in the garden. There's always just so much to do, and it's easy to be like, but this is like, let's take some time to be with the violets. Tori Amos actually says to kiss the violets as they're waking up, which I think is a beautiful metaphor for like taking the time to spend time in spring. And so for me, like the violet medicine first and foremost is just what violets do for my heart in the springtime. Just the gladdening, the happiness, like, oh my gosh. And they did just come up so fast. Making medicine and food with violets is so much fun because the aesthetics are just gorgeous. Yeah. So I love to make violet syrup, which does, impart that flavor that's so special. And when you make the violet syrup, depending on your water and what type of water you have, it might be blue when you first make it or pinkish. And then you can add drops of lemon juice, and it changes it until you get what I like is like the deep purple. And it's just so cool. This deep purple syrup made from these flowers.
And you're saying it does impart some of what we're smelling.
Yeah, it does.
Tastes somewhat like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And then with that syrup, you could just have that syrup. I'll talk about medicinal virtues in just a moment, but you could just like have that syrup by the spoonful. But what we like to do is we make violet gelato. Oh, wow. Okay. Which is really fun. Or we make violets. I make a kiss the violets Tori reference cocktail or mocktail. And so that's really fun. Then of course you can use the flowers to adorn salads and cakes and all sorts of things like that as well. So there's like really endless possibilities to how to enjoy violets. So even that, like the medicine, even if it had no medicinal virtues, just making the syrup and then enjoying that, also medicine, because it's just such a, again, ephemeral plant, that's the word, ephemeral plant that you really have to harvest yourself. And sometimes Chinese medicine apothecaries will carry the leaves and stuff, but often not super great quality. So really this is a plant that you need to get to know, to harvest yourself. In many places it does grow weedy. Definitely look for that smell. There's lots of different violets out there, but when it comes to this type of medicine, I love the odoratum. There's a lot of wild violets out there, and I don't recommend harvesting wild violets unless you are very connected to place and you know the status of, some violets are kind of less hard, less populous, and you could come across like one patch that's like big and beautiful, but that might be the only patch for many miles. And so it's not just a plant that you want to find like one good stand, but you really want to be in touch with like, what is the status of this plant in this region? Is it at risk, etc. So it's nice to have these like weedy varieties in our lawns and stuff where we can enjoy them and harvest them and not have to worry about having any kind of negative impact in that regard. Yeah, so medicinal gifts of violet is, energetically they're so cooling and soothing, and that is like a great indication for their medicine. So like whenever you have hot, dry conditions, violet's there to help you. That can be a hot, dry cough, hot, dry skin, just any type of heat and dryness in that sense. Jim McDonald, who we mentioned, and he talks about violet being so great for like rigidity and anger, and how there's a softening to violet, like, just a softening in our personalities even as well. Violet can really modulate inflammation, especially inflammation due to dryness. So used pretty famously for things like the dry eczema, dry skin conditions as well.
Are you referring to the aerial parts tinctured or tea or both?
So I love to work with the violet flowers, and the violet leaves are fantastic as well, and they persist much longer. Okay, and so these are also, like, if you give them a little nibble on the leaves, they have a demulcent quality to them as well as the, I can just immediately feel that.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of violets are very similar, but some of them are more, especially the roots can have other constituents that can be like nausea inducing. So really good to know like what your native species is, and again, harvest with care. But yeah, the slimy on that. Yep. But on a hot summer's day, like adding some violet leaves to a salad. I don't like it as the only salad green, but a little bit of salad green is good. It makes a really great nourishing infusion. Violets. But again, it's like you kind of have to harvest it yourself and dry it. You can dry the flowers kind of, sort of, like technically you can, but they, like this one is kind of spent. And like when they actually fully dry, they just become like these like curled up little tiny pieces of themselves. So better to make medicine with these fresh. So I love the syrup. I love the tea. People do work with it as a tincture. I'm not really a tincture person. So especially for something that's cooling and moistening, you can get some of those properties into a tincture, but alcohol is so drying and warming that it's, if like you really want the cool, soothing medicine of violet, then a tea or syrup is going to be better. Also, I love to infuse this into oil with dandelion as like a lymphatic massage oil as well. So it does make a lovely oil in that regard. Did I mention we make a gelato out of it?
Is it blue?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And you could add like, it makes a, like bluish, but you could add something like butterfly pea flower.
Oh, okay.
Just
really
to like
make it pop.
Yeah, really make it pop.
Yeah, I was very impressed with how slimy the leaves were. I know I've had it. It's been a long time since I've violet leaf. I'm a huge marshmallow root infusion fan. I would love to try harvesting and drying some someday and trying the infusion out of the leaves. I suspect it'll be quite slimy, actually. Yeah. Yeah,
I think it's such a wonderful thing. Maybe we could talk about lawns in a little bit, but I'm all about not having a monoculture grass lawn, and it's a great thing to get established in your lawn. It can be a little tricky, like I've had trouble getting it in our lawn just because like if you already have like thick matted grass, then it can be a little bit more difficult, but with a little bit of urging you can get it spreading, and you can, I know you all can't see here, but there's probably like 15 different violet flowers which are spreading exuberantly, and I hope they continue to spread because you just really can't have enough violets around.
Yeah, this has been, smelling that again, it is reminiscent. You know how like the memories associated with smell and everything, I'm like, oh yeah, for sure, I remember this one. Smell-o-vision, but...
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain that smell. It's
like kind of sweet floral. It's lovely.
Yeah. Oh, people make like jams and jellies out of violet stuff. Oh, vinegar violet vinegar is quite nice. And you can make that into like a shrub or a drink or, our book, Emily and mine's book, Wild Remedies, we have lots of violet recipes in there. Some of those Emily created, like the cocktails and mocktails and stuff. They're quite inventive. So those are in there. And yeah, love violets. And I'm just, I know you'll be back for the summer visit when everything's blooming, but this is like a special thing to have time with these violets since they're here for such a short period of time.
Yay.
They're also super nutritious. They're like filled with all sorts of lovely things, especially like rutin and just wonderful heart health too. Like these are great, like nourishing for the heart.
One of my favorite things about the herbal community is we just love the common, weedy, everyday plants. And I feel like this one, even though it is that, I feel like it's still underappreciated perhaps. But I definitely want to start utilizing this more, spending more time with the violet now.
Mason said I had to talk about dandelion. I'm just kidding.
Well, it's true.
You'd like casually drop that like 3 times, so I was like quick to pick up the hint.
Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say about one of my favorite plants.
I know. I love that this is one of your favorite plants because it's one of my favorite plants on so many different levels. Dandelions. You know what I don't get, Mason? So one of my very favorite times of year is when the lawn bursts into dandelion flower. We're kind of right on the precipice of this right now. And like as far as the eye can see, we can kind of see it from our view here, like past the camera and stuff. It's just dandelions everywhere. It's like these little nuggets of gold, like that fill the lawn. Yeah. And there's bees and beetles and spiders and ladybugs and all of these different beings so thrilled that the dandelion is here. And it's so beautiful. And people literally poison the earth and their own water tables in order to prevent this beauty from happening. Like, that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
It really is. Like, it just, like, I know we all know that, but, like, if I start to think about it even a little bit, I'm just like, I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Can I share a quick story with you?
Please do.
We were just staying in an RV park. I won't say where or anything like that, but this person was using Roundup, spraying weeds on their tiny little, gravelly proper area essentially, and it just seems so bizarre to me. I'm like, they're temporarily staying there and they decided to pull out Roundup and start spraying these dandelions, and they don't even live there, you know what I mean? It was the most bizarre experience. I debated like talking to them or something. Like, I was deeply offended by it. It was anyways, I just wanted to share that.
Well, I think there's something to be said for saying something. Like, as I've learned, yelling at people doesn't work. Like, I definitely have that, I know. But, talking to people on a personal level, maybe even not strangers, even like our neighbors, to express, like, sometimes like they aren't ready to love dandelion the way that we are yet. We'll get there. But it's well known that Roundup causes problems. It's banned in Europe. And to talk about things, like a sibling or a friend or, family member who's gotten cancer. And, it's like literally you're not supposed to use this around like children and animals. And, even to talk about that, like some people really love their dogs or whatever, and to talk about like, let's make this place safe for us all. Sometimes that, especially if we talk about like shared values and not like, I'm going to tell you, everything you need to know, and like finger wagging. Again, I know this because I have done this like ad nauseum. But I do think that it's not hard. Like once people have that, like, because I think that a lot of it's autopilot. Like they just think that they're supposed to spray Roundup or whatever, it's autopilot. Once we interrupt that, I don't think it's that hard to love dandelions because again, like this is so beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And then of course the dandelion has so many gifts that it offers us, which we could be here 2 hours talking about dandelion gifts. I definitely think that these flowers, they bring joy to the heart, just by looking at them, but also working with them is quite joyful. I used to make a lot of dandelion flower mead, and one year I got my husband involved in the harvesting of it, of which he was not entirely thrilled because it takes a lot. Yeah, it's kind of tedious and it takes a lot of work. But, you know, he helped me. And after a while, like, we just started, like, laughing and having a great time. And I really do feel like that's just, like, the magic of dandelion. Like, it just starts to infuse, you know, that, like, pollen gets over your fingers. And it just is a really happy experience. And it does make really great mead and makes great jelly, makes great fritters, makes great petals to sprinkle on salad. Really high in lutein, which is wonderful for the eyes. And yeah, just wonderful nutrients as well as bringing the joy. There's a lot of dandelion lookalikes, and one way to know for sure, one of many ways which we'll go over, is that dandelions, there's one flower for one stalk. So some dandelion lookalikes have like multiple flowers coming off the stalk. One flower, one stalk, and it's a hollow stalk. And sometimes it exudes a milk sap on it. There it goes. Sometimes, all the time. So that could be another way. With the dandelion flower, there's the yellow petals, aster family with ray and disc flowers. Then underneath it are these like bracts, which can be kind of bitter. And so I use my thumbnail to just kind of separate those two. So there's that bottom, the top. You can also separate the green parts here. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. One trick in working with dandelion flowers is that you have to wait for the sun to come out because they bloom with the sun, and they will close kind of later on in the day. But you have to harvest them and use them. If you harvest them and put them in a bag and put them in your fridge, they just become puff balls or they close up. So it's really like, now is the time. Like, I have the time to use them. I'm going to use them right now, is how you want to do that. I would say, though, probably the flowers are I don't use the flowers as much as other wonderful plant parts, like the leaves. This is a wonderful toothed leaf. Dandelion comes in a lot of shape and sizes, and sometimes people think that they can identify dandelion by the leaves. That's not a great indication for people if you're just starting out, because there's still a lot of leaves that look like dandelion. This has a lovely tooth appearance. Another thing about identifying dandelions, it has a smooth vein on the backside. If there's prickles there, if it's fuzzy there, then that's not dandelion, something really smooth. I love the leaves. In French, we call the leaves pissenlit, which sounds so beautiful. It means piss in the bed, which you will do. Hopefully not in the bed, but it's definitely a diuretic with the leaves. And one time I experienced that in a way I'll never forget it. I made dandelion pesto, which is one of my favorite ways to enjoy the plant as well as to convert others to enjoying the plant. So both of those are true. And so I made dandelion pesto, and I was at a friend's house, and I was sleeping in a loft with a ladder. It was kind of like a rickety ladder, you know, and so it was like my 5th time down that ladder in one night. And I was like, oh, it was the dandelion. What was I thinking? So it does work really well for that. And then just super nutritious. And I love that these, you know, some of our first spring greens, they have so much calcium, phosphorus, manganese, potassium. It's like pretty much all of those. It's in there, and a wonderful way to enjoy the plant. And this early spring, when these are young leaves like this, they're pretty good. They might have a like slight bitter taste to them, but it's kind of like a good like kind of bites back a little bit. When they become like a lion. Thank you. When they become super old and like leathery feeling, sometimes that bitter taste is more challenging. So, and not really like something that my body is like, oh, please give me more of that, in the way the spring greens are. You know, my new favorite thing to do, which I hope I have time today to do for you and Amanda, is make dandelion greens hummus.
Oh, wow.
Which is essentially adding dandelion greens to a hummus recipe. It makes it green, and then just kind of gives it, you know, this different dandelion flavor. Sure. You decorate it with the flowers and pansies and violets, all these spring things. I hope I really have time to make that now.
We can pick the leaves for you if you want.
Sweet, yeah. So yeah, wonderful food, wonderful medicine. And then there are the roots deep below the earth. This long taproot that reaches into the earth and pulls up all sorts of nutrients. And that can also be wonderful medicine for the liver. And my favorite thing, like many people though, is to chop it up and roast it and make it into a dandelion beverage. And that is absolutely medicine. We drink that all the time, just as like dandelion love, you know, liver support and all of those nutrients. You can eat the root too. It's sweeter in the fall, and sometimes people say like in the fall it's better for food, and in spring it's used up the inulin, which I should talk about. It's used up the inulin, and it has less sweetness to it and is more bitter, and so that might be a better time for medicine. Inulin is really high in the leaves and in the roots, and people get pretty excited about taking expensive probiotics for like healthy gut flora. But really, continuing, it's kind of like emerging research, but it's really showing that what makes a bigger impact on your gut flora is eating fiber and eating things like inulin, which is a prebiotic. And so leaves and roots have inulin in them, so great way.
I did not know the leaves had the inulin as well. That's good to know.
So yeah, wonderful way to support healthy gut bacteria too. Yeah, what did I leave out?
I don't know. I really liked how you went from basically the flower, stem, leaf to the root. I thought that was really nice. You also were able to flex your botany skills. I liked how you talked about the various parts.
I forgot to mention that the basal rosette is with the leaves. Because again, like some plants will have like a stem and then multiple leaves off the stem, but all of these come from a central point in the ground. So that's another identifying feature. Oh, and look, now I see what I didn't talk about is dandelion buds.
Oh, yeah.
I love the buds. You can just harvest these like this, and again, take off those like bottom parts that can be kind of bitter. And you can just add these to salads and that sort of thing and just eat the dandelion bud. I also like to ferment them with radishes. It's just like a lactoferment or a sauerkraut ferment. And that's pretty good too.
Our mutual friend Aaron one time showed me a recipe. I don't remember, it's been years now, but it was some sort of pickled dandelion buds, and there was like tamari and ginger and honey in there and stuff like that. It was actually really good. I want to do that this year if we can, but yeah.
But we really could spend a long time, and there's just so many benefits to dandelion.
Yeah, I guess my personal story is I always call it my gateway herb, and I know it probably is a lot of people's gateway herb, but I remember it was growing in my front lawn when I was in college, and someone told me that you could eat the leaves, and it just kind of blew my mind, and I was super stoked about that, and ever since then it's kind of become my symbol of getting into herbalism and stuff like that. So, but yeah, before that, I was just reflecting when you were talking about the blowing the seeds and stuff like that. I remember as a kid, I would purposely blow the seeds around to try to spread them. And it's just funny looking back now. I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense to me. But
you're already tending this plant.
Kind of was, in a way, without knowing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like to say that, like, if, that dandelion brings joy with the flowers. And if that's not enough for you, then you can just blow the seeds and make wishes. Like a plant that gives free wishes is a plant that we can love all the time.
That's right.
But I think that there is a powerful action to be had for like the simple thing of helping our neighbors to love dandelion too, because it's something like, I don't want to get this wrong, but I want to say it's like 80 billion tons of Roundup gets sprayed by homeowners or renters and people at RV parks. So it's like, that's a huge impact that goes into our waterways. It affects our birds, our insects, and our well-being as well. So I think there's like a tremendous impact. At one point we thought, spraying DDT was a good idea. Yeah, right. And now we know it's not. And, it took Silent Spring and a lot of other people's work around that. And I feel like there's really a lot of potential for a grassroots movement. And again, not to yell at people and make them feel wrong, even though it's very tempting even for me, but that kind of bringing people in and having that shared values of wanting to live a happy, healthy life and wanting the same for our children and our animals. And so I think there's a really strong action around that, which not only our neighbors, but like in Seattle, there's pesticide-free parks, and it can be a matter of like talking to businesses and parks and, on that town level too. And a lot of places get sprayed. Again, like, look at how beautiful this is. Ooh, one of my favorite things last year, so last year, there was the dandelions, they were in flower. There's not one seed head right now because we're really at the beginning stages. Right. But then, then there's the seed heads. And last year, for a long time, I watched the sparrows and pine siskins come down and eat the dandelion seeds.
Wow.
Yeah, which was really sweet. I actually learned that from Cascade Anderson Geller. I didn't know that we could really eat the seeds, but she taught me that. And then watching the birds, you just kind of come along into all these little flowers or seed heads, dandelion seed heads, and just eat them. And
are you saying humans are able to eat the seed heads too?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Huh,
they take a lot of work. Like you could just like take the heads off, like, pew, and just kind of chomp on the seeds like that. But you could also like harvest a bunch of the seeds and put them in a paper bag, and like the fluff will like come off, and then you can kind of winnow it down. It's, you know, they are high in protein, but they're pretty small.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, you know, it's kind of something to do like for fun.
Yeah, I want to do it just for the energetic aspect. Yeah. I want to give it a shot.
Yeah. So much joy in the dandelion.
That's right.
Yeah. And certainly that there's just such a powerful symbol coming up through sidewalk cracks and just reminding us that even cement isn't forever, and the plants are going to overcome, and and bringing us joy in sidewalk cracks too.
Amen.
Well, I thought since we talked about dandelions and lawns that I would share this experiment that we're doing, which is the Yarrow lawn. So where I live, it's super dry and there's not a lot of water. And when we bought this place, it's this huge lawn, and we're trying to use less and less water. But I like soft ground to walk on too, you know? So it's like figuring out what to do about that. And a lot of they're rewilding your lawn is kind of like something that's grown in popularity. Yeah. But a lot of those rewilding lawn stuff, like I see a lot of it come out of the UK, and it's like they're using very plants that really still need water. Like I've seen clovers and self-heals and violets and etc. That just doesn't work here as a lawn that needs very little water. So we're doing a Yarrow lawn. And this has been a big project that especially my husband has been working on. I should not take full credit. So he took this big section of the lawn, and first he dug up all the sod and all the grass, and then he seeded in pounds and pounds of yarrow. Wow. And then he had to meticulously water it for a very long time. It took a while to germinate and get started. And this year was kind of the year of is it going to work? And it is coming in really beautifully. And so the idea is that we'll have this soft lawn that we can walk on and enjoy. That has other, we have plenty of dandelions growing in here. We do have some clover. We have mullein. So there's lots going on there. But then we'll have the yarrow, and we'll keep it mowed. So we aren't going to have a meadow. Right. Because this is this is a space that we use a lot in terms of having picnics and that sort of thing. So we want the lawn, so we'll keep it mowed, but it's just so beautiful. I don't know if you can come down with me, but little patch of it here. And now I get to boast that, how many yarrow plants do you think are here? 20,000? Yeah. So quite the yarrow, but it's kind of an ongoing experiment, and haven't really shared it much with folks because we're just waiting to see if it's going to work. But if it does work really well and it gets established and ideally takes very little water, then we're going to implement that in other parts of the lawn as well.
So the way you came about this was the whole rewilding the lawn situation. You're all these other plants they desire a lot of water, whereas yarrow doesn't. Did you all think of this? Was this one of your ideas to do the yarrow?
It did come into my mind as an idea. Wow. But then I looked into it to be
has anyone else done this? Yarrow lawn,
yeah. So we found more information about that, and and we still, there's mallow growing, so there's still different plants in here. But we're hoping the yarrow will be the biggest one, because it thrives here, and yarrow is a very popular or common plant around here. And so really hoping for that.
Right here. Yeah, just looking at it, if you didn't tell me it was a yarrow lawn, I would just think it was a regular lawn.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
When you look really, right now, all those little tiny baby yarrow, if you look at them close, they're pretty cute. Those little baby yarrow leaves and everything. They're just so beautiful.
What a neat idea.
Yeah.
It's a very herbalist thing to do.
Yeah, and then I can talk about yarrow.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe when we get back inside.
That sounds good.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that tour, Rosalee. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
All right, we're back. Hey everyone, this is Mason with HerbRally. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and also go ahead and subscribe. We come out with new herbal content each and every week. If you didn't know, HerbRally also lists herbalism events. We list herbalism events chronologically. We list them also by state. So you could just go ahead and search by Oregon or Wisconsin or wherever you live. You could find out what herbalism events are happening in your neck of the woods. We also list herbalism events, virtual herbal events. So if you can't make it to an in-person conference or plant walk, we list lots of virtual events as well. To find out more, you could go to herbrally.com/events or herbrally.com/virtual. But if you can help it, I would highly recommend trying to go to an herbalism conference. Those are some of the best learning experiences I've ever had, and that's where you can find different herbal teachers, and then maybe you could perhaps take their apprenticeship. But yeah, just do what you can. Get out there and learn about the herbs, you know, like yarrow, dandelion, corn, you know, all the above, like all the medicinal herbs. And we'll see you out there. Hope to see you at an herb conference. All right, bye.